When was the last time you were bragging about something you did at work? It's been a while, hasn't it? Yeah, I know. People don't go home from work saying great things about what they did during the day. They didn't go home and talk about an awesome customer services thing that you did. You saved someone's life by giving them great information to help them get their medicine that they needed so badly, or that you found some paper or research information that a movie producer or a college professor needed to write a script or a dissertation. In fact, when you go home and sit at the table and your wife or your husband says, what happened today at work? You probably just say, oh, just about the same thing every day. Well, that's a problem, because most people do want to get promoted or get a new job or stay excited about their work. But then they are not excited themselves about their work. They sound dull and can't seem to remember what they did all day. And so then when they want to get a promotion or it's time for a promotion, then of course their resume sounds about as dull as that conversation at the dinner table. And so therefore that resume and cover letter doesn't result in getting interviews or getting a call or even getting referred to a manager. So starting today and starting tomorrow, I'd like you to think about something that you did during the day that was really good, that you really helped someone, your boss, a customer, a team member. I want you to think about something you did very, very well and write it down, because one of these days you are going to want to get a promotion or a new assignment or a new detail with your supervisor. And you may not talk to your supervisor very much, and they may not even know what you do all day. They're not watching you. So if you talk to your supervisor, you could just say, oh man, I'm so glad what I did last week with that customer. It was so good helping them. It made me feel so good. And the supervisor will say, whoa, what did you do? And then you can tell them what you did. You helped them get this medicine and they were having a lot of problems, and you went the extra mile by making phone calls. And the supervisor will say, that is really good. And so next time supervisor's got a detail or a special project, they'll remember how good you were with that customer and that problem. And then they will say, hey, John or Susan, how would you like to do this project? It's right up your line, really important customer service work. So, yes, I know it's a little bit of bragging, and people always say to me when I'm teaching my resume writing classes, I was always taught not to brag. Well, honest to Pete, you got to take care of yourself, and you got to know that you're good, because you're not going to get promoted or hired if you aren't good at something that you're doing in your work. And you got to think about it, remember it, talk about it, write it down, and it has to become part of you and your whole knowledge of yourself and your skills. So here's an example of a story for a job seeker. I was working with an American Airlines pilot who was retiring after all his years at American Airlines, and he wanted to get a job at Federal Aviation Administration as a safety inspector, which would be a great idea, I think. So his resume was very short, and just wrote down the airlines that he flew and how many hours he flew and titles of his jobs. Very, very basic. Well, the application for FAA requires that you write little stories and narratives about your skills and risk assessment and accountability and supervision. Well, this pilot was so confident that he was so expert as a pilot for so many years, he didn't bother to write the narratives. And so I met him after he had been searching for 5 years. And I knew the narratives had to be written. So one of them was risk assessment, and I thought that would be kind of exciting to hear some story about risk assessment for a pilot. So I said to him, can't you tell me something about something that happened on a flight that was exciting and you had to do a risk assessment to determine which way to go with the flight or handle the situation that you were in? Because that's what we have to write here. And so he said to me, Well, yes, there was that time in Europe with that volcanic ash, and all of the flights in Europe were down for 2 to 3 weeks. But me, I was flying for American Airlines, and I took the initiative to go see the engineers at Boeing that manufactured my plane and ask those engineers, is there a way that we can fly through this volcanic ash and keep it safe? And they said, yes, there is a way. You can fly sideways, this way or that way. You can't go up or down, but you can fly if you go left or right. So he took the engineers and himself to the senior leaders at American Airlines, and they all talked, and they decided to fly the planes out of Paris during the volcanic ash. And as it turned out, American Airlines was the only commercial flight to fly during that 2-week period of time, and they flew 15,000 flights as a result of what my client took the initiative to do to find out if that plane could fly, and they flew every flight safely. So guess what? He was hired. FAA now has a really good risk inspection, aviation's inspector working for them, and it's all because of that story. He thought of what he did that demonstrated risk assessment. So these little stories about what you do in your job that will demonstrate that you're really good at your work can help you to get promoted and help you to get an interview and make you feel great and not be bored to death at your own job interview. It's all about storytelling and bragging. Yes, it is bragging about what you've done in your job.